In World War II, when machine guns, tanks, and bombs had become the standard of modern warfare,
Have you ever wondered, why did Japanese officers still carry samurai swords? Not in movies. Not for performance. But in real war.
why would a modern nation, with powerful military industry, continue to keep a weapon seemingly outdated for hundreds of years?
The answer lies not just in tactics, but deep within the culture. First, one thing must be clear. The sword was not a primary weapon in World War II.
Japanese forces fought primarily with Arisaka rifles, machine guns,
artillery, aircraft, and warships.
The sword was not used to directly confront modern firepower.
Because for the Japanese, the sword was never just a weapon. Throughout hundreds of years of history,
The samurai sword was considered the soul of the warrior.
it symbolized honor, loyalty, discipline, and the spirit of readiness to sacrifice. This ideology stems from Bushido, Busmen, the way of the warrior, a value system deeply ingrained in Japanese culture. When Japan modernized its military, they didn't discard the samurai spirit.
They combined it with modern warfare.
And the sword was the clearest symbol of that union.
In World War II, Japanese officers carried a specific type of sword called the gunto. The gunto was not exactly the traditional katana of old.
It was a military sword. Standardized.
Designed specifically for commanding officers.
There were two main types, Kyugunto and Shingunto.
Kyugunto, the older style, heavily influenced by Western sabers.
Shingunto, the new style, designed to look more like the traditional katana.
Some were hand-forged in the ancient way.
But the vast majority were industrially mass-produced to meet huge demand. This meant the sword was no longer just a rare personal weapon, but a symbol of rank and power. For Japanese officers, carrying a sword was mandatory. The sword represented command status, responsibility to the soldiers, and commitment to the empire.
In military culture, an officer losing his sword meant losing his honor. An officer abandoning his sword meant betraying the warrior spirit.
The sword was also used in rituals,
Ceremonies of swearing oaths.
and even in moments of life and death.
In desperate situations,
When out of ammunition.
close quarters combat, or when completely surrounded.
Some Japanese officers would still draw their swords and charge. Banzai! Not for military efficiency!
But because they believed that dying in honor was better than living in shame.
The sword became the ultimate combat tool. Or a tool to end one's own life. For the Japanese soldiers, the officer's sword was a spiritual symbol.
It reminded them of discipline and loyalty.
For the enemy, the image of a Japanese officer with a sword had a powerful psychological impact.
Evoking a sense of death defiance and refusal to surrender.
In war, psychology is sometimes just as important as weapons.
So, Japan used swords in World War II.
Not because they were backward or behind the times,
but because the sword is a cultural symbol.
It is the samurai spirit.
It is the honor.
And it is the thread connecting the past to the present.
In a brutal, modern war. Japan still carried the soul of the samurai age.
and that.
Created one of the most unique historical images.
For the enemy, the image of a Japanese officer with a sword had a powerful psychological impact.
Evoking a sense of death defiance and refusal to surrender.
In war, psychology is sometimes just as important as weapons.
So, Japan used swords in World War II.
But because the sword is a cultural symbol.